let's pray. Jehovah, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the revelation of what it is to be a judge, to be a leader, to be appointed. Jehovah, let us always seek righteousness first, justice. That's where life is for us. We ask that no matter what, we're people that don't distort that. We lift up this Torah portion to you, these instructions, and we just ask that we're able to have eyes that see, ears that hear, and ultimately that we become people that obey. Because unless we do your instructions, we're not declared righteous. So we lift up this to you. We know it represents your name, YHVH. Let us take on that name in its fullness. Emunah. The Kohanim who are Leviim, remember Kohanim who are Leviim means descendants of Aharon, right? And indeed, the whole tribe of Levi are not to have a share of inheritance with Israel. Instead, their support will come from the food offered by fire to Jehovah and from whatever else becomes his. They will have no inheritance with their brothers because Jehovah is their inheritance, as he has said to them. The Kohanim will have the right to receive from the people. From those offerings, a sacrifice, whether an ox or a sheep, the shoulder, the jaw, and the stomach, you will also give him the first fruits of your grain, your new wine and olive oil, and the first of the fleece of your sheep, which I think is the first time I've ever seen the first of the fleece of the sheep. In other words, this goes, what you start to see with first fruits and first, it's the best of the best. The first of the first goes to Jehovah and passes to the priest. I don't think I've ever seen the fleece of the sheep, but I do know that what I've been working on when we talked about it last week, which was what the prophet wore, and we saw that actually the prophet would wear the wool. So this would be the clothing. So how would the priest be able to even have clothing if you don't give them wool? You start to see like, okay, I got it. Okay. For Jehovah your God has chosen him from all your tribes to stand and serve in the name of Jehovah. To stand and serve in the name of Jehovah is to stand and serve in the name of the Torah, right? To stand and serve and to be that person that stands in the Torah, right? Stands in that gap to teach the Torah, to teach the law. That's what the name of Jehovah is, the Torah, right? To stand and serve in the name of Jehovah, him and his sons forever. If a Levi from one of your towns anywhere in Israel where he is living comes highly motivated. So in other words, this is a Levi, but he's not a Kohanim. But he's highly motivated. He wants to do this. It's in his heart. It's the thing he loves. And he comes to the place which Jehovah will choose. Then he will serve there in the name of Jehovah his God, just like his kinsmen, the Leviim who stand and serve in the presence of Jehovah. Such a Levi will receive the same shares they do, in addition to what he may receive from selling his inheritance, his ancestral property. This is a first time for me to really dial into this. This is phenomenal because this is very much like the eunuch. And this points to the person in the last days. He may not know whether he's, a Kohanim who is a Leviim, right? But we know that the Leviim are the ones that can handle the Torah and can handle those things. So if you've got a person who's highly motivated to do that, Jehovah says that he's going to grant that person an inheritance along with the Kohanim, which is very much the same thing you see for the eunuch who says, hey, I'm going to make this Shabbat, important to me. I'm going to make it the most important thing, even though I can't fulfill the covenant, even though I don't have the ability to fulfill the covenant because I don't have the genitalia to do it. Jehovah says, I'm going to give you something better than a name of a son and daughter. I'm going to give you. So there's this higher reward goes to the one who pushes through. And it starts to show you a little bit of how Jehovah judges and how he perceives things. So, the highly motivated, the person says, no, I'm going to make this. This is what I want to do. This is excellent. And I'm going to make it excellent. This is something I'm going to honor. Jehovah doesn't say, I'm not going to honor you. He says the same thing for the foreigner. He says, if there's a foreigner who's living with you, who attaches themselves to me, don't let that foreigner say in his heart that Jehovah will forget me. So we start to see this characteristic of Jehovah in the foreigner. We see this in the eunuch, and now we see it even within the priesthood, that the person who says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this important, I'm going to keep it completely centered around Jehovah, I'm going to keep the standard, I'm going to uphold it, I'm going to, that person, he says, will be given a share along. So there is this grafting element that you see throughout the Torah. And it's not just, it's even within the priesthood as well. When you enter the land of Jehovah your God is giving you, you are not to learn how to follow the abominable practices of those nations. So we cannot, we're not allowed to learn, the practices of the nations, those that are out of covenant, like their religions. It doesn't matter. So trying to be like, well, I'm going to study all religions in order to figure out, don't even learn them. There's enough here that we have to learn, take on, become wholehearted and listen and do the Torah. We ain't got no time for nobody else's Torah. And it will just confuse you too, because it's a philosophy. So you'll change the way you actually think, because you're letting in these other thoughts and these other patterns to come in, and it will alter the way that you actually perceive the Torah and Jehovah. So don't even, again, how do you judge? He's giving you the standard. How do you look at the Torah? How do you seek justice and justice alone? So one of the things, read the Torah every day, because it teaches you to fear Jehovah. It shows you how to keep the Torah, how to obey it, and how to do it, right? Don't take a gift. Be careful, because gifts and money and things like that, they'll blind your eye. They'll twist the words of the upright. He's showing you. All I see is zeal in this Torah portion. I see zeal. I see, even for the Levi, it's the zeal that he has to serve Jehovah. That zeal is what gives him his office. It's like Jehovah is, when it comes to performance on job, you may not be the person with the college degree. You may not be the person who's got all the qualifications, but you're the hardest working guy. The cream rises to the top in Jehovah's eyes, and he rewards those who are worthy of being rewarded. I see that in him, and in the way that he judges, in the way that he perceives things. There must not be found among you anyone who makes his son or daughter pass through the fire. That is abortion. So we don't believe in abortion. We don't kill our children. We don't do that stuff. A diviner, a soothsayer, so that's a person who uses divination, witchcraft, spirits, even, listen, I'm going to go pray right now. I'm going to contact the Holy Spirit. But all of that stuff is no. Diviner, soothsayer, an enchanter, those are people that they do that over and over again, and they say, I want to pray for you, and they keep saying the same thing, or they say they want to do songs and worship, and all they do is say, oh God, oh God, yeah, Jesus come, and Jesus give us your word. They say it over and over again. That's what that is. That's called incantations, spellcasting, enchanters, sorcerers. These are people that use witchcraft, okay, spells. So let me help you out, because we have some that are going to leadership school, and a lot of the stuff that I'm already seeing is a lot of spell casting stuff. A lot of I am great. Whoa, chill out, okay? Look, you're only great in any greatness that's in you is because it is the God that is in you. And what they're teaching is to separate, and have you, view yourself as the maker of the world, like you make a difference. And all those things are true, but not when they're separated from Jehovah. So you got to be mindful, that, as you're going through, and my job is not to try to remove, all obstacles from my children. No, my job is to know that Jehovah's writing their day and that I'm there to help them along the way. It's my job. Not take away and be like, oh, well, they're not going to live in a bubble. A spellcaster. Okay. This is a lot of, just so you know, some spellcasters, just so you know, are also your TV anchors. Okay. They'll use catchphrase words, and they'll say them over and over and over and over and over again.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about the trouble and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Right. So a consultor of Ghost. Okay, these are people that talk to ghosts or spirits. So this is, people that consult the Holy Spirit. This is, or spirits, or necromancers. These are people that contact the dead, which means that the dead can be contacted. It means that spirits can be spoken to. It means that ghosts are real. It means that spells are real. It means sorcerers and enchanters, all these things, and witchcraft, all of it's real. Very, very real. And whoever does these things is detestable to Jehovah. So what does that tell you? So sometimes you'll hear me say some things that seem pretty harsh. I'll tell you that, if you forsake the Torah of Jehovah, you hate the law of Jehovah, right? Then your prayers are an abomination. So that X's out a lot of people that show up on Sunday. But what do they seek? They don't seek Jehovah. They don't seek his Torah. They seek spirits. That's an abomination. It's detestable to Jehovah. And because of these abominations, Jehovah your God is driving them out ahead of you. You must be wholehearted with Jehovah your God. You can highlight that one. Wholehearted. That was the reason why the Israelites, the first generation, did not make it out. It was said that Caleb and Yehoshua had a different spirit inside of them. And the different spirit that they had was that they were wholehearted to Jehovah. Their continence, the way they thought, the way they perceived things. They didn't look at, they didn't complain. They didn't see as bad, or they saw just Jehovah in all of it. You must be wholehearted with Jehovah your God. For these nations which you are about to dispose, listen to soothsayers and diviners. But you, Jehovah your God, does not allow you to do this. So you have to understand, what are soothsayers and diviners? news stations, pastors, people that want to give you advice, medical journal articles. All of this stuff is to sway your opinion based on circumstances or facts or perception. And do any of those perceptions, outlooks, or any of them, are they centered on Jehovah? So again, this is why you'll hear me say advice, because they're adding to your advice. It's the person who's talking to you or giving you advice. Are they speaking to you from the perspective of Jehovah? Or are they speaking to you as soothsayers and diviners? People trying to make you feel good. Don't give me advice. So don't listen to anything that's outside of Jehovah's Torah. Ultimately, you must be wholehearted with Jehovah. That means that you see Jehovah in your woe, you see him in your blessing, you see. All right, we're almost done, and then we'll stop at 19 here. Jehovah will raise up for you a prophet like me from among yourselves. So a prophet like me from among yourselves means that Moshe only spoke the words of Jehovah. Okay, so if a prophet like me means that the prophet has to speak the words of Moshe. This is key. So when you look at your prophets, your three majors and your minors, you can add Baruch in there if you want. He's not, I mean, some of you are making faces right now, you never even heard of him, but he's a prophet. It could be considered one of the major prophets. He is inside of our documents. He just removed them. That's what they did. But you know, when you look at what a prophet is, a prophet, a Navi, has to be just like Moshe. Moshe is the standard. What was it about Moshe that made him? He was humble. He never raised his head against the Torah, right? Always did exactly what Jehovah said. Right? So those are the standards. So when you're looking at your Torahs, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, right? Are they raising their head above Torah, or are they only speaking what Jehovah says? Right? Just to kind of give you what your standard is. A prophet like me from among yourselves, from your own kinsmen, you are to pay attention to him, just as when you were assembled at Horeb and requested Jehovah your God, don't let me hear the voice of Jehovah my God anymore, or let me see his great fire ever again. If I do, I will die. On that occasion, Jehovah said to me, they are right in what they are saying. I will raise up for them, a prophet like you from among their kinsmen. I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell them everything I order him. Whoever doesn't listen to my words, which he will speak in my name, will have to account for himself to me. So he's telling you that there are going to be prophets that come after Moshe. Okay? So what are some of these prophets? We know that Samuel was a prophet, right? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, right? David. These are all prophets. And what did all of these people do? They spoke the Torah. They spoke the words of Moshe in the 5 books. They lived and decided and judged and thought in that concept. So Jehovah says that during your generations, there's going to be prophets among you. The prophets that are among you that are good, which I will send to you, will only speak to you the Torah. That's a good prophet. There's also bad prophets. By the way, those bad prophets are prophets that Jehovah sends as well. Those prophets are designed to test you and to deceive you. So when you find a person, you're like, oh man, I got the greatest pastor. I love him. And you listen to the pastor, right? And he's just like, you're like, what? No Torah at all? That pastor by design was sent to gather a flock of people that would listen to a false doctrine. It's by design, because that pastor reveals what's inside that heart of that person. So if there is a prophet among you, and he's speaking the Torah, which are my words, right, which are the Devarim, right, the 5 books of Moshe, he's speaking them in Jehovah's name. You either are going to hear it, listen, and do, or you will then be held accountable. Again, this is in the context of the Shoftim and the concept of how Jehovah is going to judge, what his standard of judgment and how he's going to lay that down. But if a prophet, here's this word again, presumptuously speaks a word. So if we go back to this presumptuously, this is prideful. This is a person that, is arrogant. This is a person that fails, okay? To speak a word in my name, which I didn't order him to say, or if he speaks in the name of other gods. Whoa. So if somebody comes to you and says they're a pastor or a prophet and speaks to you in the name of Jesus, that's another God. It's a false prophet. So anybody that speaks to you in any name outside of Jehovah is a false prophet. Then that prophet must die. Again, we're in the context of Shoftim and the concept of judgment. So we're seeing it from Jehovah's perspective. We're seeing the judgment that he's placing on these people. You may be wondering, I love this. How are we to know if a word has not been spoken by Jehovah? I love how Jehovah does it. Sometimes he just breaks it down, makes it so simple. You may be wondering. When a prophet speaks in the name of Jehovah and the prediction does not come true, that is, the word is not fulfilled, then Jehovah did not speak that word. The prophet who said it spoke presumptuously, and that's that word zadan, which is arrogance, boasting, pride, big-headed, or contempt. That the prophet who said it spoke presumptuously, or zadan. You have nothing to fear from him. So this kind of eliminates the whole concept of a lot of the fear mongering that pastors do. They make you like afraid that you're going to die and not go to heaven and all this other stuff, and you're going to go to hell, right? But none of that, all of that is presumptuous. None of it is inside of the Torah. All of it is done in the name of another God. And ultimately, none of that is going to come true because it's not based on Jehovah's words. So it's all a lie. It's one big Ponzi scheme of lies. Now, I know based on Ezekiel, because I'm in Ezekiel 14, he says that the Navis, the false prophets who do this to Israel, the ones who bear the mark, it's interesting what he does. He's like, I'm going to take the punishment that I was going to put on the ones who bear the mark, and I'm going to put that punishment onto the Navi who did this. So again, you start to see this covenant term around Jehovah. It's like, even though you got suckered, I'm still going to give the punishment to the one who did it to you. So he turns that on them, which is really amazing. So we have defined now, and again, this was a big jewel for me I picked up, or if he speaks in the name of other gods. I missed that one. That's a new one for me. That's a big highlight. So if anybody comes, any prophet doesn't say, thus says Jehovah, isn't speaking to you Torah, says, thus says Jesus, thus says Muhammad, thus says whoever, that's false prophet. And ultimately, that prophet leads to death. His judgment is death, and he's a deceiver. But go to Deuteronomy 13. What does it say in Deuteronomy 13? Jehovah says, I'm the one who sends you the false Navi. To do what? To test your heart, to see if you wholeheartedly love me? Or do you like the false promises of, you don't have to do anything. There's just all you got to do is love. Love. Which reveals really your own heart into your own demise.